We welcome you to United in Liberty Radio, where we discuss the principles of freedom and liberty, where we discuss the principles of the Constitution. I am Joe Olivas.
I'm Dustin Harris.
We'd like to welcome you, your listeners, out this evening. You know, Dustin, we've had a lot of comments that have been floating around across the news today, and a couple of them have struck some interest in my mind. And this isn't a source that this isn't an individual that I would normally quote. I definitely don't side with his views on how he should govern. But coming from Reuters, we hear something about our president coming from a different type of source, if you will, from Ahmadinejad. He brought up a few things that I wanted to bring up, and they were quite interesting.
This is on principle-based radio, right?
That's right. That's bear with me.
We're going to start out with the Iranian president.
That's right. But it's quite telling. I mean, this is in reference to President Obama announcing the new U.S. policy on the restricted use of atomic weapons. It's funny that our president is, I guess, imposing sanctions on himself and his ability to use the weapons to protect our country. But he makes, this is what Ahmadinejad says. He says, Obama makes these latest remarks because he is inexperienced and an amateur politician. American politicians are like cowboys. Whenever they have legal shortcomings, their hands go to their guns. Like I said, this is not somebody that I would reference as an individual that I believe in. I definitely don't believe in his methods, but it's quite telling to me to have somebody of his caliber point out our current president for what he is, an amateur, a community organizer that has never run a business, that's never created a job, but just somebody that has been very effective at organizing people around really any
hope and change.
Any cause, really. I mean, he can spout out a phrase or two and organize the community around that. And I think most of us understand at this point that it's just a lot of rhetoric and just a lot of talk to get people behind something. And the problem is nobody weighs what he's saying by principle, and so they don't realize that there are unintended consequences. And this is a direct result of what we've got. We've got a president now who rams through unconstitutional health care legislation on the country, which is going to have a great backlash, but also now is trying to determine or trying to restrict how we as a country will protect ourselves. I think that's just ridiculous.
My wife and I had an interesting discussion before we came on the air, Joe. We were talking tonight about a book that she's reading, and she's only a couple chapters into it, so I can't recommend it or tell you to sway away from it. But the book has had a lot of influence on her friends. And in fact, the book is actually called Influencer. The author slips my mind right now, but it's quite a popular book right now. It talks about how people influence other people. And the question that she asked me tonight, and I think this is a perfect example when we talk about Obama, is what is the difference between an influencer and a manipulator? It's an interesting question because both of those people get other people to do things. Mm-hmm. The difference in my mind and the answer that I gave her, the difference between an influencer and a manipulator is an influencer uses true principles. An influencer allows you to feel the truth in things, and I believe people feel the truth. When truth is spoken, it speaks to your heart. A manipulator will get you to do things that you normally would not otherwise do, but you do it because they have such pressure on you or blackmail on you or influence on you, if you will, in the negative sense, to push you to do something you would not normally do. Obama, we know, is very good at getting a large group of people to go along with whatever it is that he wants to do. I would say that what he does is not influence. What he does is manipulation.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely what he's doing. That's what we've seen through the health care bill that's now law. The funny thing is you've got newspaper headlines and headlines on different news outlets online that are questioning where the free health care is now. People are now looking for all the free things that he's promised. because they expected it to happen overnight, and people are realizing that's not really what it was. I mean, I look at, I've talked to individuals about this type of thing. Where you mentioned a manipulator or an influencer, but somebody who's going to manipulate you is going to take away your ability to choose. And the way they're going to do that is they're going to present you with two choices. And they're not going to tell you that both choices are bad.
Yeah.
See, if I give you two negative choices, and if I lie to you and I give you a false, and then I give you a choice between another falsehood, and I force you to choose between them, I haven't given you the ability to choose. I mean, you don't have the ability to choose between right and wrong. Choosing between two wrongs means you don't have a choice at all. You're going to end up with something that's unprincipled and something that you didn't want and didn't intend. And I think that's what we're seeing across the country. There's a lot of ridiculous things that are starting to come out as a result of this health care law. Pelosi wasn't lying when she said we have to vote on the bill to see what's in the bill. It seems like every day we're finding something new that nobody knew was in this thing because nobody read the thing.
Well, you got to pass this, you know what's in it.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous to see that, and I think this nuclear strategy that Obama is pointing out or laying out, I think it just speaks to his inability to lead as commander-in-chief. I mean, he's supposed to be the most powerful individual in the greatest country of the world, and what he is doing, well, he is actually one of the most powerful people in the greatest country of the world. But I would argue at this point, it's not for good that he's leading this country. He definitely has his agenda on the vision of what he sees this country doing, and we saw picture after picture of him bowing down to different leaders across the world, and then to take this stance that we're going to limit the ability to use nuclear weapons in defense of our country. I think it's just it's ludicrous.
Well, really. Let's lay the foundation, Joe, and talk to our listeners if they're not aware of what we're talking about. This is straight from the New York Times. Well, that's great. We're going to start out with Ahmadinejad and the New York Times.
Oh, yeah.
Principle-based radio here. President Obama said Monday he was revamping the American nuclear strategy to substantially narrow the conditions under which the United States would use nuclear weapons. In other words, what he's doing is saying, okay, we're going to scale back. We're going to announce to the world what our strategy is concerning nuclear weapons. Says, but the president said in an interview that he was carving out an exception for, quote-unquote, outliers like Iran and North Korea, those who have violated or renounced the main treaty to halt the nuclear proliferation. Mr. Obama described his policy as part of a broader effort to edge the world toward making nuclear weapons obsolete. To set an example, the new strategy renounced the development of new nuclear weapons, overruling an initial position of his own defense secretary. It eliminates much of the ambiguity that has deliberately existed in the American nuclear strategy. Now, I would just pause here for a second and say, Joe, isn't that kind of the point? I mean, aren't we supposed to be ambiguous when it comes to the nuclear strategy? I really have an issue, not so much, and we're going to get into the policy that he's announcing, but the fact that he's announcing a policy at all. Yeah. What is the purpose of carrying a concealed weapon?
I think the purpose of carrying a concealed weapon is to take care of yourself, to protect yourself, but keep it hidden from someone else so that they don't know that you're ready to protect yourself.
I mean, this is a perfect example of where our commander-in-chief, as you said, the most powerful person in our nation, now announces to the world from his bully pulpit, okay, here's what we will do, and here's what we won't do if you try to attack us.
Well, I mean, he's and not to use a gambling analogy, but he's laying his hand out on the table before he begins. I mean, I think it's just silly to see that. It's unprincipled in that we recognize that principle number 3, that the proper role of government, or the role of government is to protect.